Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy deep stories filled with mystery, history, and hidden truths, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in the world of Lord of the Mysteries. Now, before we continue, let's quickly recap what happened previously in chapter 216, The Same Old Gathering. The fog-covered morning of Backland had begun like any other. Klein, now living at 15 Minsk Street, took his first real step as a detective, placing an ad in the Backland Bulletin. Sherlock Moriarty, private detective, reasonable fees, strict confidentiality. He wanted to keep a low profile to blend in, while quietly exploring the hidden world beneath the city. Throughout the day, he gathered ritual ingredients, powders, herbs, and silver, all in preparation for his spiritual work. Later, Klein returned to his apartment and ascended. Above the gray fog, the Tarot Club was once again gathered. There sat the Fool at the head. The Hanged Man Alger across the table, the son Derek and the Justice Audrey, each their distant corners of the world. Alger brought forth 19 pages of Emperor Roselle's diary, a gift in exchange for divine help. Klein accepted the pages with calm authority. Among the many entries, one name echoed like a whisper from the abyss: Mr. Dorr. Mysterious existence who claimed to hold knowledge, power, and the means to return to the world. Roselle had refused his offer, suspecting it to be the temptation of an evil god. But for Klein, this was only the beginning of a deeper mystery. Who was Mr. Dorr, and what truths lay buried in the forgotten ages? Chapter 217, Mr. Dorr's description. Mr. Dorr, this nomming style is very similar to mine. I wonder what the real name of this pathetic fellow who was lost and trapped in the deep darkness amidst the storms is. And what his sequence is, or rather, just as Emperor Roselle had guessed, he's one of the evil gods or devils. Klein let out a silent chuckle mixed with ridicule and self-deprecating humor. He was also interested in the history of the Fourth Epoch. I know of the most famous war of the four emperors in the Fourth Epoch, but the specific details and the main figures involved are limited to the information spread by the major churches. For example, the Black Emperor of the Solomon Empire. It wasn't until today that this so-called Mr. Dorr finally answered my questions by letting me know who the remaining three emperors are: the half-insane Blood Emperor of the Tudor dynasty, the Night Emperor of the Trundo Empire, and the Emperor of the Underworld of the Southern Continent, also known as Death. According to Mr. Dorr's description, in this war that changed the situation of the entire world, the Black Emperor, Blood Emperor, and Night Emperor fell one after another. The Emperor of the Underworld reaped the greatest benefits. Having said that, Mr. Dorr added, with profound significance, that after over a century of digestion, Death went mad, but he also became stronger. Therefore, Death teamed up with the primordial demoness and brought about a pale disaster for the northern continent. Of course, this isn't something Mr. Dorr witnessed personally, but rather something he hears when he comes close to the real world. Every month, Death went mad but also became stronger. Even deities can go mad. What a horrifying sentence. However, this also confirms my guess. Before the Fifth Epoch, those deities would often descend into the real world, directly interfering with events in the northern and southern continents. They might even personally appear, just like Death. I asked Mr. Dorr if he had participated in the War of the Four Emperors. If so, what role did he play, and what position did the seven deities maintain in this war? What role did they play? Mr. Dorr didn't answer my question. He only said in a teasing manner that the number of preeminent mighty figures in the Fourth Epoch far exceeds my imagination. In addition, he mentioned two laws. One is the law of beyonder characteristic indestructibility, and the other is the law of similar sequence beyonder characteristic conservation, which is consistent with certain things I have learned from that most secret and ancient organization, and also from some phenomena I have observed. This can lead to many interesting conclusions, making many explanations take on other forms and causing one's mind to tremble in horror. For example, when there are too many high sequence beyonders in the same sequence, Pathway: the low sequence Bayonders would decrease and vice versa, the Bayonder characteristics are fixed at the source, they do not increase or decrease. Does this mean that there really is a God who created all the deities, an omnipotent and omniscient God, and everything originated from him? This was the longest Roselle diary that Klein had ever seen. It took up 2 full pages, and one could imagine that it originally came on a double-sided page. It only became 2 separate pages after repeated copying. That's a lot of information, Klein sighed silently. As a history student who had graduated normally, he had always believed that the Solomon Empire, the Tudor dynasty, and the Trundo Empire came one after the other in a certain order, with some restoration before a new political outcome was established. To his surprise, the War of the Four Emperors, described by Mr. Dorr clearly and unambiguously, revealed one thing: all 3 empires had existed at the same time. If this were true, it would really overturn most current research on the fourth epoch in the field of history. Klein suddenly thought of the original Klein, who was filled with interest in archaeology and the history of the fourth epoch. Today I've helped him achieve his wish. I wonder if Death had already become a true deity during the War of the Four Emperors. It's hard to determine from Mr. Dorr's descriptions. I can only assume for now that the Emperor of the Underworld, who benefited from the war, had broken through his limits and become a deity, but he also went mad as a result. To have a deity go mad was truly terrifying. Just thinking about the details makes one tremble to the core. It's no wonder that the knowledgeable Emperor Roselle used the word horrifying to describe this matter. Could it be that the so-called evil gods were actually crazed Orthodox deities? Would that mean that there might be only evil gods left in this world one day? Man, does this mean that the end of days cannot be stopped? Klein smiled to hide the growing severity of his emotions. He felt that the future he imagined was filled with a dark gray hue. At the same time, he raised his estimation of the Black Emperor, Blood Emperor, and Night Emperor, believing them to be preeminent, mighty figures who were close to being deities. Perhaps that means sequence 1 is the peak existence of a single pathway. According to this logic, for the Black Emperor to live for centuries or over a millennium wouldn't be unacceptable. That would explain the original Klein's confusion. He had obtained contradictory findings from the content recorded in the antagonist family's notebook and his mentor's viewpoints. He believed that Black Emperor was the common name used by every emperor of the Solomon Empire. Perhaps the Black Emperor had always been the same Black Emperor. Of course, other possibilities cannot be eliminated. For example, they could have been replaced 2 or 3 times, but is the name of that pathway's sequence one Black Emperor? I wonder who Mr. Dorr is in the history of the fourth epoch. Emperor Roselle didn't go into detail when describing his erroneous experiments and accidental coincidences, making it impossible for me to even try to converse with that Mr. Dorr. The laws of Bayonder characteristic indestructibility and similar sequence Bayonder characteristic conservation share the same description as the one used by the captain. Perhaps the term he used came from Emperor Roselle. According to the 2 laws described by Mr. Dorr, we can indeed deduce many interesting speculations. For example, with so many holy artifacts and high sequence Bayonders in the 7 churches, there shouldn't be many low sequence Bayonders, but this contradicts reality, and the only reasonable explanation is an additional gift from the deities. For example, is the destruction of the nation of Evernite due to the conservation of characteristics that the mere possession of resources causes it trouble, or could it be said that their existence seriously weakens the potency of the Evernite pathway and threatens the goddess's position? Theoretically speaking, certain sealed artifacts could also be used as main ingredients for potion materials, or even considered equivalent to potions. Of course, the prerequisite is to remove all latent dangers and madness. No wonder the documents that were unearthed called the fourth epoch the epoch of the gods. So it turns out that in this epoch there are many records of deities descending. Then what caused them to stop appearing to the point that There were no revelations, if it wasn't for the fact that Beyonders receive responses from ritualistic magic. Perhaps many of them would have doubted the existence of the deities. Many ideas came to Klein suddenly, as he felt that he had delved deeper into mysticism in this Beyonder world. He flipped through the next 4 pages and was disappointed to realize that they were no longer related to Mr. Dorr. His ability as a clown allowed him to conceal his emotions well, and coupled with the gray fog's obstruction, even Audrey, who was secretly observing him, didn't notice anything amiss. He gathered his chaotic thoughts and started reading the 3rd page of the diary. 10th September, I've endured it for a long time, but I still can't help but complain a little. I must have had no brains to choose the savant path, right? Of course, this has indeed allowed me to develop my greatest advantage, allowing the church to attach great importance to me, but the problem is that the first few sequences lack any beyond powers needed for combat. I can only make do by relying on mystical items, and I rely way too much on external items. For example, Sequence 9 Savant only has extraordinary abilities in memory, learning, and practical skills. For example, Sequence 8 Archaeologist gains a strong physique and corresponding ancient knowledge, and can only barely apply some ritualistic magic. For example, Sequence 7 Appraiser has the ability to quickly identify mystical objects, allowing them to avoid hidden dangers to the greatest extent. For example, Sequence 6 Artisan can produce mechanical wonders but not very powerful beyond objects. Apart from that, one standard in ritualistic magic will be enhanced. It's no wonder its modern name is Machinery Specialist. Comparatively speaking, the Sequence 7 Warlock and Sequence 6 Scrolls Professor of the Mystery Priest pathway are sufficiently tempting. It would be great if only the church had the complete sequence and the hidden Sage didn't exist. However, I finally received some good news. After I advance again, I'll gain beyond powers, combat powers that I can call my own. Sequence 5 Astromancer. Its modern name scares me a little. It's actually called Astronomer. Am I going to end up as an all-powerful mad scientist? Heavens have mercy on me. I was only a second-tier student at the college entrance examination. It must be said that Emperor Roselle has a strange talent for making jokes. Even the recently dispirited Klein couldn't help but twitch his mouth, wishing to light a candle for this senior. Study hard and improve by the day is indeed a wise saying. He laughed and remembered the unique trait of the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery. They lacked beyond powers in combat, but they were good at making and using items. After flipping to the 3rd page of the diary, Klein continued reading. June 2, the kingdom has created chaos again and again, instigating wars without being able to completely destroy the Fac Empire, the Lone Kingdom, and the Fainter Kingdom. As such, the kingdom has no choice but to shoulder huge debts, and its economy is on the verge of collapse. From my observations, the people, merchants, and soldiers are very dissatisfied. The riots are just lacking a spark. This is my chance, but I have to be very careful. The Sauron family has witnessed the history of the 4th epoch and is an ancient family with a high possibility of having high sequence Beyonders. I need the support of the church as well as a tacit agreement with the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun. I can appear immediately. First, I'll let the rebels destroy order before I end it all as a protector. Consul Rosal Gustivi, I like that name.